Hi, this is Lori Mangold. Second video. I'm going to go ahead and paper piece a second block, and I'm not going to quite spend as much time describing it, but for those of you who watched the first one and want a shorter version, this is the shorter version. So this is block number 3, and we're going to start by placing our fabric over the area 1. And as I said in the first video, I made these pieces the same size as the foundation, so there's no question that if you just line it up and you press, you've got that area covered. Okay. Oops. My freezer paper didn't stick, and I'm a freezer paper fanatic, so let me try that again. That worked. Okay, so again, I have my fabric pressed, so pressing is step 1. Now step 2 is the card trick. I need to find the line between 1 and 2, which you can see is right here. I'm going to place my card or my ruler, my skinny part of my ruler, this line right here, and I'm going to fold you. And all we're using this paper or this cardstock for is to give us something to fold against, to give us a nice sharp fold. So I folded, and now I'm going to do the trimming. I put my add a quarter. Remember, it gives me a 1/4 inch from the edge for my seam allowance. I go ahead and trim. I open that back up, and now I said here triangle piece, so I'm going to take one of my triangle pieces, and it looks like a triangle, and I'm going to place it, the seam allowances together so that they're nice and even, and then I'm going to flip this up and see, is it covering? And I'm just going to slip it down a little bit like that. That makes me happier, and I'm going to place it there, and now I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to sew on that line. It's real easy to sew on the line, so I have that done, and now I'm going to flip this up, and I'm going to press that. So like I said, there's about 4 basic steps that if you remember then you do in order, then you will just keep doing it over and over again. So step number 1 is I pressed. I put the fabric on and I pressed. Step number 2 is the card trick. So now that we've done 1 and 2, we have to do the line between 1 and 3, which is this one. And this is going to use a fabric strip. So we pressed, now I'm going to do the card trick. I'm going to take my card, I'm going to place it on the line between 1 and 3. Sometimes it'll be between 1 and 2 and 3. I'm going to fold this back on that line, just like that. I'm going to take my add a quarter. Now we fold, we do the card trick, and we trim. Get that out of there. We open that back up, and now we get fabric 3, which I said is going to be a strip. There it is. And put that right on that where I trimmed. That's your seam allowance. And again, I always test. Yep, that's going to be fine. And I'm going to come over and I'm going to sew that. Okay, so I sewed. Now I have to press again. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to take it to my iron, and I'm going to press against that. Making sure, after I press, I always want to make sure that my fabric's coming out all the way to the edges, right? Piece number 4, super easy. It's a triangular piece. I pressed. I'm going to do the card trick. Fold this corner back. Pull down. If I've stitched into that area, pull it flat. So now I have all 3 pieces here. That's okay. Anything that sticks out beyond this ruler gets cut off. And so I'm going to use my add a quarter and cut that off. Get that one a little closer. Okay. And now this says triangle piece. So I'm going to take one of my triangles. See, I tried to make it as easy as possible to get you to, if you pre-cut the shapes, it makes it super easy. And then I'm going to flip this up and check. It easily gets out to the edge. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to sew this one. So I always press, and that's pretty much in all sewing. So I'm going to press that up, get my iron, And I'm going to, so you can kind of see, if I had to get up in between and go sew and go press and go cut, I'd be losing a lot of weight paper piecing. But if you have everything right here, you're literally just going back and forth. Now again, this looks pretty darn, didn't stick, pretty down scraggy at this point, but now we're going to trim it down to the size it's supposed to be, which is 4.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to trim the first side here, and you just trim anything that's sticking off beyond. Now I'm going to measure 4.5 inches, which is the width of my ruler, conveniently over, and I'm going to trim this side. Oops, my ruler moved. Hopefully that'll be okay. It's the problem with cutting when you're sitting down. Okay, now this one's going to be 6.5. So I get that one. And then I can go this way for the 6.5. There's 6.5. I did cut that seam allowance a little bit, but that's okay. I've got plenty. Okay, and trim this one. And there is this one. All done. So you can see how fast that can be. Boom, boom, boom. Now, when you buy a normal paper piecing pattern, they're probably not going to tell you how to pre-cut your shapes. And you start getting all of these pieces. And then you start getting stingy and think, oh, that'll cover that little piece. And you sew it on and you realize it's not enough fabric. And I'm not saying I don't save a lot of my little pieces, but know that you'll waste a lot of time ripping. You always want to have a pretty generous piece. Okay, and I made them very generous because I know a lot of you have never paper pieced. The only other thing I'm going to tell you at this point is that normally we don't remove the paper until you've got this sewn in. So you would assemble your whole block. Between these are going to be 1.5 inch strips, and then you would remove the paper. There are some people that will remove it beforehand, and that's okay too. When you remove the paper, it's important that when you peel this back, I always fold it against the stitch line and use my fingernail, and it should come right off at the perforation, and then I can do that. And then you can see I've got the paper off, and it automatically starts this one. And you just want to be careful you don't pull your stitches out. And so I always have my thumbnail there, trying to make sure. And then you've got this one, and that's the hard one, is that when you get little tiny pieces caught inside. But you can do that, and I can pull this one off, and now I have my block all done and ready to go. So that's paper piecing. I hope that's enough information to get you through. If it's not, call the store, set an appointment up with me or one of the other girls, and we'll sit down and walk you through it here at the store. But I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Thanks.